You're listening to the Actors Resource Podcast with Aaliyah Lay, a podcast for actors and improvisers with interviews from entertainment industry experts.
Today, our special guest is Karina Walters. Karina is a proud member of the Casting Society of America and has 15 years of casting experience, including S.W.A.T, Unreal, Burnos, The Shield, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Out of the Shadows, and The Watch. She has worked as a full casting director since 2012, and prior to that, she was a casting associate, honing her craft with some of the top casting directors in the business. It was her desire to help actors and other creative professionals who often struggle with fluctuating incomes and the lack of company retirement plans that first ignited her passion for helping others get on track financially, though you certainly don't have to be in a creative field to enlist her help. In early 2018, Karina began working with Revolution Financial Management. Based on her own experience, she saw the importance of educating Americans on the fundamental principles of building wealth, believing that everyone, regardless of income or background, should have increased financial literacy. For the past 3 years, she has made it her mission to help people plan for a greater quality of life by learning about and implementing basic but powerful financial concepts. So welcome, Karina.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
I am loving that you're here. So, of course, we're first going to ask you some casting questions, right? But then definitely want to ask you more about financial knowledge because that is so important for actors.
Yes. I'm here to talk about both. Yeah.
So the first question is, how did you even first get into casting?
Well, I used to, in my 20s, I worked at an ad agency in Chicago and I just didn't love it. And I always loved movies and TV, just, as a fan of the art. But I didn't want to be an actor myself. I just had a lot of respect for actors and I loved watching actors. And so I started doing research on what, you see 300 people listed in the credits of a movie. I was like, what do all those people do? So I started researching different areas of the industry and I read about casting and it just seemed like a perfect fit because I remember actors and what they've done. And yeah, it was like, oh, you can get paid for that. That's the thing that I talk about with my friends anyway. So I moved out to Los Angeles. I think 27. I started as an unpaid intern to get experience. And then, I ended up working with the same women for my first 6 years as an associate. So that was exciting.
That is really cool. So you really put in your effort interning for free just to learn the industry. And then from there, you started working with the same people, so the same women, for another 6 years.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of the only way in at the time because there's no class, there's no school for casting. So you really have to learn by doing. And I, at the time, it's what I wanted to do. I had years of experience in an office, so I feel like I got hired pretty quickly after starting as an intern because they knew that was my career goal. I wasn't, and there's nothing wrong. I actually think all actors should try to intern in a casting office if they can, because you learn so much. But because I wasn't an actor, I was looking to do casting. And I was like, teach me everything. So as soon as they had a show available that they could hire me on, they were able to.
That is so cool. Definitely. I would love to help out casting because you can see different sides, right? Like I think it's so good to know the opposite side of the camera. What happens in casting for you? When you were, working on the shows, what were some of the challenges that you faced and what were some of the things you loved?
Start with what I loved because that's easy. The reason I never went to work for, there's studio executives at studios and networks that have more stability. They get paid a lot more, but they aren't in the room with actors. So that was always my favorite part, was actually being in the audition room, helping actors. First, just making a good environment, like helping them feel comfortable it's so big.
I remember, actually, I auditioned for you a few times, and I always remember you and everyone in the office being really nice and really friendly and very warm. So just so you know.
you. That means a lot, honestly. Like that was the number one thing is, we understand that it's nerve-wracking for actors. So if we can sort of like make sure that that we're on your side, that it's not us versus, it's not casting versus actors. Like we're a team. We want everyone to do the best job they can to have the best shot at getting the job. So yeah, that was the other thing. It was like, if I can help somebody get their best performance and leave feeling like they've done a good job, like that's all you can really do. So I loved that part. I loved sort of helping directors and writers find their perfect blend of a cast. So all the creative parts I love. I love when you get to see the final product. That was, I don't want to call it a downside, but that was one of the frustrations. It was like after we cast, then, it takes a long time to shoot and see the final thing. And so I'd always be like, oh, I want to see it right now.
I want to see all the people I help put in these roles and how they interact. And yeah.
Yes, I want to see it immediately. So that was always like hard just because I just wanted to see it. But yeah, like there's nothing like watching a final product and knowing, that you had a hand in helping create that. So those are the things that I really loved. The things that were hard, it's the same things that are hard for actors. To be honest, it's the instability. It's not always having control.
Because you're independent.
Exactly. So we have to, interview. We don't audition, but we have meetings to get jobs. And some of the same frustration for actors, like you can be amazing at what you do and not necessarily get the part. Sometimes it's, they have too many people that look like you, or whatever it is. There's so many things that can affect who gets cast. Acting is obviously number one, but there's things outside of that will affect who gets the role as well. So the same sort of frustration would come up in casting. Sometimes it would be, somebody's had a relationship with a producer for 14 years. So, but a lot of it just, there were times where it definitely got frustrating to know that I was doing a good job, that I was a good person, and that it would still sometimes be a real struggle to find work between projects. So that was probably my least favorite thing.
Yeah. And I love that you're sharing this because I feel like sometimes actors don't realize what's going on for the casting, right? What can actors do to help you, other casting directors, to make your job easier as a casting person?
I think the things that are in your control as an actor are being prepared. And that there's a lot of things that go into that, like reading the script if it's available. I was always surprised the number of times, like on an indie movie, for example, the number of times where we would make the script available because we know, the more information you have, the better. Even if your character is a small, just in one scene, we still would like people to read the whole script so they get an understanding of the tone of the piece. And so it always surprised me the number of times where somebody would come in and admit to us that they hadn't read it, or they would ask a question that was like very clearly answered in the script. That was just confusing to me because I would never meet with a director or a producer having not read
or done the research if you could, right?
Yeah.
Because it helps inform your preparation. Yeah.
Exactly. And for me, and I can't speak for every casting director, but I'll say for me, very rarely did we need somebody to be off book, meaning have it completely memorized. If you're doing a TV show pilot and you're in the final testing stage, then you probably need to be off book. But for the most part, we're totally fine if people need to hold their audition sides. That's fine. What also was frustrating was when you felt like they were reading it for the first time. It doesn't have to be memorized, but you should be familiar with the material so that you're not thinking about the words, you're thinking about the performance. And when you're getting an adjustment from the casting director, you're more easily able to take it because, again, you're not worried about the words. You're able to adjust the emotion or the stakes or whatever it is the note is about. It's easier to take a note if you're already very familiar with the text.
Yeah. What about today, during COVID times? And like, I know there's lots of self-tapes now, and there aren't any adjustments from casting. So self-tapes today, auditions today, what are your thoughts about that, if you want to share?
Yeah. Well, I'm not casting as much as I was before. I did do a short film kind of to help some friends, but I've transitioned a little bit. But I am still, a CSA member, and I have lots of friends who cast, and I have lots of friends who are actors still. It's all self-tape now. I think that's not a bad thing. Like, there are downsides to it. Getting the immediate feedback from casting is definitely, the downside. Not being able to ask questions before you do your read is a downside. But there's a lot of benefits too. Like, you're able to kind of play around with it a little bit more. See, do different takes yourself and see how it's reading, and then send in your best take. And I think a lot more people are getting seen for roles because of it. It's a lot easier to go through and watch, 100 self-tapes for a role than it is to see 100 actors in person. Because in person, again, I miss getting to like say hi to people and stuff, but that takes time, getting people in and out. But when you're just watching tapes, you can really just kind of go through and watch more. The other thing, which is, this may make actors sad, but you don't have to go through the entire audition. If you get, partway through and you realize the actor is maybe a great actor, but not right for that part. Whereas in an in-person audition, you would never be like, okay, thank you, stop, leave, right? That would be terrible. If anyone does that, like, they just shouldn't be in casting. But when it's self-tapes, you can kind of get a sense of that pretty quickly. And so you're able to get through and see more people, which gives more people a shot. It also makes it a little bit more competitive. So I don't think we're ever going to be solely self-tape. I don't think that in person is going to go away, for callbacks and chemistry reads and things like that. But I do think it's going to be much more common, even after COVID, to do the first round on tape and then, callbacks in person when appropriate. I feel like it's going to stick around.
So you can tell right away as you're looking through the self-tapes, about halfway through or so, you're like, great actor, not right for this part.
Yeah.
But maybe keep them in mind for the future.
Exactly. And sometimes, again, I've talked to a couple other casting directors just in the last couple of days about this. So I was like, is that just me? No, it's our general consensus is within 30 seconds, if somebody is going to be right for that. Now, it's not saying like, oh my God, they're amazing, and wouldn't change anything, but you watch the rest, and then you might give them a note and have them retape. You might, but you can usually tell if it's not the right person quickly. In the narrowing down. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about the adjustments, right, in person. And some people had questions like, is it bad to get an adjustment, or is it good to get an adjustment? In your experience, how you work, what does it mean when an actor gets an adjustment?
I think in person, it's hard to say, because sometimes, and every casting director is different too. I know I said that already, but
yeah, that's the hard part, right? Everyone is different.
My general advice is, like, you don't know if you get an adjustment. What it means is you got an adjustment. It doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. If somebody does something perfect, but like if somebody does something and like that was exactly, there's nothing I would change about that, then I'm not giving an adjustment just to do it usually. So, but at the same time, if somebody does it and it's like, even with an adjustment, they're not right, I also might not give an adjustment. So you can't tell. And then, if I give an adjustment, sometimes it's because somebody is off the mark and I want to give them a chance to course correct, and it's still not working. Sometimes it's like, they were great, I just want to tweak one little thing, especially if it's something we're casting off tape. I want to tweak one little thing so that they have the best shot at getting the job. So in both cases, adjustment and non-adjustment, it could be a quote good thing or a quote bad thing. You just don't know. It really just, all you know for sure is that we want to see it again with something changed, some note.
Okay, and so as long as you follow the direction and make that adjustment, don't get in your head as an actor, or if anything, assume the best. I mean, if you're going to assume anything, you might as well assume you did great and they want to see more.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Because otherwise you're really just guessing either way. So you're right. You might as well guess on the positive side.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And I think just one or two more questions about casting. And I definitely want to ask you about how you've been transitioning and helping actors and other people about financial wealth. Regarding it being more competitive now because of self-taping, what can an actor do to help, be more competitive? And how would they know if they're competitive enough? Those are tough questions. So,
it's a good question. I just don't know that there's a clear answer.
yeah.
I mean, it's the same as it's always been. Just know that there are more people. So, but what you need to do is the same. It's do the work, like work at your craft. I know that, we're in a weird time right now, but there are lots of classes still going on online. It's not the same, and I understand that, but like there's things you can do to continue to use your acting muscle, to work on your craft, to get better. And the same thing that makes a good performance in person is the same thing that makes a good performance on tape. So it's really just like my basic, tips. It's going to depend on the role. It's going to depend on the project, what stands out. So you can't really answer that. But what I can say, regardless of the role or project, is inhabiting the character, not acting the part. And that's something that you just, like, whatever the role is, you have to find something in it that is you, even if it's a very different circumstance than yours. So I always tell people, like, don't try to think about what you think that we want. Find yourself in the character, in that person's shoes, in that person's circumstances, but then it doesn't feel like you're acting. You're just showing us how you would be in that situation with that mindset, with that background, all of the backstory that you create. But that's true no matter what. Again, it's just really kind of understanding that there are a lot of people. There have always been a lot of people, but now there's even more because location, it doesn't matter as much except for quarantine. Sometimes location matters more because of that. But, that more and more people are getting a shot because we can see more people quickly. But the same thing is going to get you the job, which is doing a good performance and being the most appropriate in the creators' minds, actors, producers, for what they envision for that role. That's still the person who's going to get the part.
Yeah. So it definitely sounds like don't worry as an actor when we audition about doing it right in terms of doing what we think casting wants that role to be. Do it with your preparation, bring yourself in it, and being that character.
Exactly. Because sometimes it's very clear what we're looking for. Other times it's not. And so other times, or we think we know what we want, and then we see something different and it's like, oh, that's a different take on it. That's a unique take because that person brought themselves to it. Now, it doesn't mean like do something totally crazy, like totally different than what's written. That's not what I'm saying. But, but there are times where it's like, if you find a version of it that is really you, that is a little bit different, like that's really interesting. And we don't know that would be something that would work until we see it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I wish I could give you a specific example, but there've definitely been times where, we've seen lots of different types of people for a role. And I could tell some of them were trying to do it, it was written like kind of an uptight character, but then we started seeing people that were a lot more like, I don't know, I'm going to say hip, a lot cooler.
Opposite of uptight.
Yeah. But so they were trying to sort of like fit themselves into this. They were trying to like put their square selves into this round hole. And it was like, no, we actually want to see if you can like change the hole a little bit. And the people that did that, the people that kind of found a way to make it their own, it still really worked, even though it was different. And the people that tried to guess what we want and do that, it almost felt like bad acting because it was so foreign to like who they were.
Yeah.
I know that's hard without a specific example, but always bring yourself to it and you can't go wrong. You may not get the part, but when you do, it's going to be the right part for you when you bring yourself to it.
Yeah. Now, is there any specific times or things where you would like actors to know to definitely not do? Like, because we already talked about definite yeses, preparation, but are there any definite nos?
Yeah, there's little things. I mean, for the most part, I say, do what feels right to you. When it comes to stand up or sit down or, use props or don't use prop. Like, I always tell people, like, whatever's going to help you. Multiple eye lines, one eye line. These are a lot of questions that we'll get about logistics. I truly think it's whatever's going to help you be in the moment, right? Sometimes people are distracted by using a prop. Other times people without the prop, they feel silly, so it really is individual. But what is universal, I think, is, again, this is more for in the room, but I'll just talk about it anyway, because I think we're going to go back there. It's when people would finish a scene and then they would go, oh, that was terrible.
They'd say it out loud?
You would say that out loud, or you'd see them be like, ugh.
Or their face would fall like, I just thought it was terrible, even if they don't say it.
And it's like, what if we thought that was wonderful? And now you're basically telling it, like it always, people, we say they talk themselves out of the room. Like they either like start saying too much, or they start talking about how bad that was, or that they weren't prepared. It goes back to admitting they didn't read the script. Like I just got this. I haven't really had a chance. And they're doing it. I understand they're doing it to try and be like, if this sucks, this is why. But you're setting yourself up like, we're going to not think it's good already because of that. You know what I feel like I'm wording it weird, but that was always something that it made me sad. Like, don't do that. Just come in and do the best you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And be confident after you're done.
What if it's amazing? But if you tell us this is going to suck, it almost doesn't matter, I think that was the biggest one. I can't think of any others. I used to have like a little list, but it really is, there's nothing you can do right or wrong. What are some other tips? I think, again, it's most of them are for in person. That can be alleviated with self tapes. But if somebody would like start a scene and like get partway through and be like, this isn't working, I would rather somebody stop and say, I'm so sorry, can I start over? You can sort of see when somebody gets off track, and then it's like, it's hard to get back on. Other people are really good about just like, recovering. But I would rather have somebody just stop and start over, not 10 times. And not, 2 minutes into a 3-minute scene, but, to sort of realize that you're off track and ask to start over. That's totally fine.
Rather than continuing down the wrong track.
Yeah.
Close to the beginning. And you know it. They know it. Everyone knows it. And they're still forcing it. And you're like, no, it's okay. Just go ahead and start over. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that tip though about after an audition in person, right? And an actor going, oh, that was terrible, or their face falling. That is such a great tip to know. Like, don't do that. Casting might have loved it.
Yeah. And then the other thing, it's really more just like a philosophy. This applies to self-tapes. I'm trying to make sure that I talk about this time that we're in, because that's what's happening right now. But there is something that I think, this is just like Karina's philosophy on life, really, which is,
yes, bring it.
Do the best you can and then let it go. There's so much out of your control. Which, like I said, was one of the frustrating parts about casting. But, you do the best you can. And then once your audition's over, once you've sent the tape in, stop worrying about it. You'll either get a call back or you won't. You'll get a note or you won't. You'll get the part or you won't. But if you obsess about it, you're just making yourself miserable. And again, there's factors outside of your performance that will ultimately determine who gets the part as well. Sometimes it's just not the right fit, and that's okay too. If you get called into the same office multiple times, I've heard actors complain about that. I'm like, that's a fantastic compliment. That means they think that you're good. They're just trying to find the right thing for you or the right time for you. So never complain about, I've been in for them 8 times and I haven't booked. Well, they're still bringing you in. That is the sincerest, positive feedback you can get.
Oh, love that. Yes.
Yeah. But ultimately, like there's nothing you can do once you've done your job. You have to just trust that the part that's meant for you will come to you, and the parts that aren't. And then you just got to live your life,
Yeah. And I heard another interview with Sterling K. Brown, and he said almost the same thing. He said he celebrates sincerely everyone's successes. And he's like, what's meant for them is meant for them. But what's meant for me is meant for me. And then he just completely celebrates anyone else's successes. And I love that. You just said very similar to what he said. I love it.
And this is the truth too. If you're an actor, you should be acting because you love acting. So every audition is a chance to act.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, you have to, of course you can want success. You shouldn't, you're not going to be an actor if you're not hoping to have some level of success, but you have to also find fulfillment in the process.
Yes, I love that.
Because the success may take 30 years. It may take a year. It may take 30 years. It may come and then go. So you have to be doing it because you love the process, and then the results are what they are.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking about success, which is what we want, financial success as well. In the meantime, until that happens, tell us more about how you're helping actors with our finances and helping us to be more in control, because that is one of the struggles for actors for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, I'll be totally transparent. The reason I got started helping others with their finances is because I needed some help. That instability that I talked about. I, turned 40 several years ago. And for me, that was kind of a, which is not old, but it was sort of I realized, when I turned 40, it wasn't new information, but I just kind of thought, I'm going to come to LA. I'm going to do a good job and things will take care of themselves. Right. And I was working on big projects and I was making decent money. And then just like actors, I'd be looking for the next thing. And so, I turned 40 without really having anything saved for retirement, without really having anything saved for emergencies. And there was something about that age where I thought I really need to start figuring this stuff out if I'm ever going to not be stressed about money. So I was referred to the company that I now work with. I got a financial plan. We do free financial education for people. And I found the process so empowering that I wanted to do it for other people. Did not think I was going to leave casting. I just thought this is really important. I think it's valuable. I also saw it as a way to make a little extra money because I knew what I needed to do in order to retire. I needed to start saving more, which means I needed to make a little bit more. So I started doing it part-time but unexpectedly, it became a different way to help. And initially actors at first, like I saw the need because like you said, actors and other creative people have fluctuating income. It's hard to budget when you don't know what's coming in. Actors and other creative people are investing, they're spending money on their careers, not necessarily bringing money in, which is hard for some financial planners to understand. So, but I really, truly believe like I want to get rid of that starving artist stereotype. Like you don't have to be struggling to be an artist. You can do things, even if they're small things, to improve your finances, to give you more security there, which then enables you to go into an audition without desperation.
Right.
Right. So as a casting director, you could tell when somebody was like, I need this job. I need this job. How much better would it be to go in saying like, I want this job and I'm going to do everything I can because I want to play this part, but I'm going to be okay no matter what. That energy is very different. So yeah, I started out just like I do financial events, like kind of group setting, educational events, also meet with people one-on-one. Everything that we do is free. There's no obligation for anything. So, that's something that I think keeps people from seeking help is they think it's going to cost them a lot of money or they don't make enough. And that's just true with us. So
Really lovely. Yeah. Because I think if you go to any financial planner, usually they charge you something even for a consultation, right? I think, but you don't.
we don't. And I don't want to go too much into it now, but it really is a beautiful system. And it's a big part of why I decided to do it is because it's different. We focus on helping the average American. Most financial companies only want to work with rich people. So, it's important to us that we don't charge our clients. We get paid we work with over 200 financial companies. So if we help somebody implement part of a financial plan that uses a product or a service from one of those companies, they will pay us. So the client never has to pay. They're getting help figuring out what's best for them. They're getting education to understand how it all works, but they don't have to pay for it ever. They're getting the help they need. Companies are getting clients when it's appropriate and we're getting paid.
I love that. It's a win-win-win, right? The companies win, you win, and your clients win. Like that is one of the hard parts is as a creative or as an actor sometimes, like you said, right? We don't have the extra income because we're already spending so much on our careers that having a financial planner and paying, whatever fee it is every time It's nice to have that service that you provide that is free, that is helpful, and then it's totally just up to the client, your actor, what they want to do from there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
It frees up, I mean, I don't know. It really is fulfilling to know that people, like, even if you just help somebody understand how to pay off their debt faster or how to budget differently, like, you feel their energy change. And I just know that that's going to help them in the rest of their life. So, it sounds kind of weird to like make this change from casting to finance, but it really is, it's the same thing. It's helping actors or other people. It's not just actors, but that's what started it. Really, like, truly feeling like I'm helping people change their lives, not just get a part, but like change their lives. That's why I made the full transition. I still, like I said, help out friends here and there with casting, but I just find so much fulfillment. And I'm frankly happier because I have a lot more control of my life than I did in casting.
Yeah.
I don't just work when somebody else decides I get to work. I work when I want to. And it's especially in COVID, it's been very good.
And I don't think it's that different. I mean, it's different in terms of it's a different industry, but from what I see and know of you, it's not different in terms of how you want to help people. So that is the same. That's like the through line.
Exactly. That's actually what I often say is that I'm still helping actors. It's just a different tool. I'm helping people achieve their goals. Finance is the tool. It's not actually about the money. It's about helping people get where they want to go and giving them the resources to do that.
Yeah, I love that so much. So do you have any events coming up, and how can people contact you in case they want to ask you more about financial services or what you can do to help them? Or
Yeah, we have events all the time. What I thought I'd say for this, because, depending on when people listen to this, the simplest thing is just to follow me on Instagram. It's Karina Ruth Walters is my Instagram account. And anytime I have an event, I'll post flyers there, but you can also DM me. You just message me and say like, hey, I heard you on the podcast. I'd love to like learn a little bit more. What's the process? That's really the simplest way to get in touch with me. I'm on it way too much. So I will get back to you there. Yeah.
Great. So Instagram for you, and it's Karina Ruth Walters, and that's spelled
Karina Ruth, Ruth Walters. Yeah.
Great. I love it. Well, thank you, Karina. I mean, I think that you are amazing, and I really appreciate your time. Wonderful knowledge. Thank you for sharing so much. Is there any last parting words you want to say?
No, I mean, we really covered it. This was really fun. I will say one more thing about the casting, because this was my phrase for such a long time, which is just book the room. Don't worry about booking the role. Yeah, do a good job. You do a good job. You book the room. You make a connection. You do your part. Like that casting director, that producer, that writer, they're going to remember you. So book the room. Don't worry about the role. The role will come.
I love it. So please, everyone who's listening at any time, follow Karina Ruth Walters on Instagram. She is lovely, a lovely person, and also just such a giver and a helper. So please reach out to her, especially about finances.
Thank you so much. This is really fun. I'm glad we did this.
Thank you. I'm so glad and grateful that you're here.
And thank you so much for listening to the Actors Resource Podcast. I'm so excited. This is the last episode of Season 1. We've had so many wonderful guests with this particular format of Q&A. Stay tuned. Season 2 will be debuting on Monday, October 4th, Pacific Standard Time. And Season 2 is going to be about success interviews, people's journeys, anywhere from the entertainment industry, where they started, challenges they faced, how they overcame them, where they are now, and how they got to where they are now and where they're going. With success being defined as not just one's achievements, but actually success defined by Earl Nightingale, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So I'm so excited to share Season 2 with you. We've got some wonderful, amazing stories and guests. Thank you.